Hello everyone and welcome back to Bitwig Studio and Music Production. This is lesson 2.17 and in this lesson we're going to segue away from working in our arranger timeline and creating mixes on the grid, if you will, to attempting to play back music live, perform live using a different view inside of Bitwig Studio. So again, we're going to be keeping this pretty basic. We're kind of imagining that we just have a mixer with EQ. We're going to add a couple more pieces to the puzzle in this series, but we're not going to get super advanced. We're not going to go really complex. We're not going to be using FX layers and all this other fun stuff you can do to manipulate the audio just yet. However, when we move forward and start talking specifically about creation and your own creations, we will get into doing some very complicated effects processing. And when we get there, I want you to remember that all of this stuff is building on itself. So you can take some of the things that you learn in later lessons and apply them to these things that we're learning here, which I would say is maybe a bit more basic. However, you need to practice and do some of these basics before really jumping headfirst into creation, especially if there's a genre that you're particularly interested in producing. I can't really teach you how to produce a given genre. It's up to you to learn that genre inside and out. And that's why I think I wanted to start with DJing, because when you DJ, you listen to these tracks more and more. You start to understand their logic. You start to pick up on their timbres, their nuances, etc. And all of that's going to help you then when you move into that production realm. No video, especially of artists kind of walking through their process of making tracks, is going to help you to make a track. Okay, rant over. Let's get into what I want to cover in this video. And what I want to cover are just a couple of the different views inside of Bitwig Studio. So if you've messed around here in all, and even if you've just accidentally clicked some different buttons, you've probably come across a few different views. So we're going to demystify that a little bit. And at the end, I'm going to talk specifically about the view we're going to be using and why I think it's the better view for performing live. So if you can draw, if I could draw your attention down to the bottom left here in the screen, you're going to see that this little icon here is highlighted and has two bars going across. This is our arrangement timeline. You know this view very well. This is what we've worked in our whole time inside of Bitwig Studio. Now, if I click that, it's going to take me to a whole new view. And this is referred to as the clip launcher view. And the clip launcher is very similar to the arranger, in as much as we can play back audio. We can play back audio clips specifically. And so in Bitwig, it refers to our block here as our clip. And you can see I can make this clip as long as I want, but if I'm playing back here, let me just get it so we're playing. I'm going to talk about what I just did in a second. We're not hearing anything, and that is because our one track is soloed. But if I go back here, we'll hear something. So in that case, we're playing back the actual event, but my clip can be as long as I want it to be. I can loop clips, etc., etc. But for any audio to be played, it has to exist within a clip, and then it's referred to as an audio event. So it's all kind of confusing, but I think just that little visual example is enough. What I can do, though, with this clip is I could bring it into my other view, and I can do that a number of ways. I can copy, I can paste, I can drag it over and drop it in. And so now we have identical clips. And so if I play back from my clip launcher, you're going to notice a couple things. The first is, if I double click here, take a look at this transport bar. All right, so we're about to hit the 9-bar mark in a couple of moments. But what is our global transport telling us? It's saying we're at 122. So the first big difference is that the clip launcher is non-linear, meaning we don't have to follow what is happening in the arrangement timeline. But if I wanted to play back from the arranger timeline, what I'd have to do is click one of these buttons here, specifically for my track, for example, track 1, or globally up here. And this is really just the back to arranger button. And I'll give you guys the great example. So when I trigger this clip, it's going to play back from 111 again. but we're actually on our global timeline here in the arranger, we're at 69 bars. So let's make that switch over here. All right, that should make pretty much sense to you guys. That's the basics of it. That's the basics of the difference between these two. And what you're gonna hear the comparison for these views all the time is that the clip launcher view is your sketch pad and the arrangement view is the canvas. And I guess that's as good a comparison as any, meaning that you are going to use this a lot of times to come up with a lot of ideas, make a lot of clips, make a lot of different clips, make variations, and then play them all back, see what works, and then you can easily record it back to the arrangement timeline. So for example, let's pretend like this was my full track here. I could hit record, click play, and you're gonna see that it's recording into the arranger. All right, very, very simple stuff. We'll get into more of that much later. Now, the difference is that these don't have to sound identical, meaning I can manipulate this different from this. And you can even see that there's a difference in view here. All right, what we're seeing here, and if I actually click one of these buttons, we'll get an identical view, but in the arrangement timeline, which I'm highlighted now, you see we have like our clip alias up here and then the audio event, where if I'm clicking inside my scene, I have a clip view, meaning I can kind of not have to go along with what's happening in the timeline. So if I want to start at bar 33, I can just pull over my start icon here, click play, and now we're starting at 33. The only way I could do that in here is to actually take my transport and move it over to bar 33. Very, very simple stuff, not going to go into more detail. Where you have to be careful is number one with automation, because the automation is not going to be identical. So if I specifically go in here and I automate something, for example, the volume, let's say I take the volume, let's go back to, I mean, it really doesn't matter. Let's say I take the volume and I make a huge dip, okay? Let's listen back here. Here's from the beginning, eh? Let's make it quick. All right, but if I'm playing back from the arrangement view, again, I hit this back to arrangement button, there is no automation, and I could actually automate this differently. Make it louder or quieter. All right, so those are not synced up, and you have to be very careful about that. Same thing when you're using effects. If I initially put an effect on the channel, so I'm just going to double click, go into my device view, and I'm going to add a reverb. Now, right now at the start, it will manipulate both the clip I have in my scene and my arrangement timeline identically. So we'll take a listen to that. First, let's listen back to the arrangement. Okay, and now we can listen to the clip. All right, that's identical. However, if I go in and start tweaking automation, like just as simple as the on-off button, which we have selected here, reverb, device on, and let's say I don't want it on my clip, I'm gonna turn it off from my clip, play back. All right, we don't hear it. And right now this is a little bit of a glitch in the program. Like I actually have to go in here, and even though it's saying device on, I actually have to create something. Kind of a pain, but whatever. But now if I go back to my clip, we're not gonna hear any reverb. All right, so that's really the basics of the clip launcher as compared to our arrangement timeline. And if you wanted to, like I was saying before, you could work specifically in the clip launcher view, and you can even pull up your mixers and stuff here. So it can be pretty much whatever you want it to be. I think that about does it for this video. In the next lesson, we're going to take a look at another view, the mix view, and kind of compare these two, and then talk about what view is going to make the most sense for us DJing moving forward. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.